dito sa INC Radio.
This is INC Radio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't underestimate
the power
of a single
conversation.
It could change your whole life.
INC Radio Chatline.
Conversations that matter.
So, how do friendships happen? How do you make friends? That's something I want to know. I want to know from you guys, because if you know me, I don't know how to make friends. My friendships just kind of end up happening. It's like naturally. How do you make friends? But before that, actually, I'm curious, Tony. I'm curious because I know for me, I know the answer to this question. Like, what's the easiest you've ever made a friend? You know, like for me, and this is kind of funny because it's you. Like Tony, you are actually like the easiest I've ever made a friend because like the friendship between us. It started with you. I think you had the initiative on that, like in terms of like talking to me. Yes. Well, I don't know if Tony's muted, so I can't quite hear her right now. Can you hear me, Tony? Yes. Oh. Oh, I think she's experiencing some internet problems. So. Okay, there you go. I can hear you.
Is it back? Am I good?
Yeah.
Am I good now? I think I heard your question. So you asked me what's the easiest way that I've made a friend? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and I was just telling Chad that like the easiest friend. I mean, I would say you, because like you kind of took the initiative in terms of like how we became friends.
I don't know. I feel like the friends that I've made the easiest were probably during school, just because proximity helps a lot when you're seated next to somebody, and let's say they're your seatmate for maybe like a whole semester, and you're kind of just there with them. I feel like every day you're kind of, I don't want to say forced, but you're kind of forced to talk to them. And then, it kind of just happens naturally just because through conversations. I feel like that was the most less minimal effort I feel that I've had to do when it comes to making friends, just because throughout school, you always had people around you, like tons. I don't know how big your classrooms were growing up in the Philippines, but here for me in Michigan, we would have up to like 30 people in one classroom together. So you had opportunities to be with a lot of different people and make friends. But these weren't necessarily like your friends that you would tell all your problems to, and they would know everything that's going on with you. They're just friends you'd play with, that you would hang out with during recess or like during lunch. They'd be your lunch mate and you'd share snacks and stuff like that,
I mean, it's like, I would say the same, like 30 plus people. And like every kind of like quarter of the school year, the teachers would usually or our homeroom teacher, I mean, would move the seats around like where you're sitting. So you kind of end up mixing with like a lot of like different classmates. So even if you're just the kind of person who only talks to like the person you're sitting next to, when you get moved around, you kind of end up meeting more people. So I guess that's also an easy way to make friends. I kind of remember like making some of my friends like that too, where just because I was sitting next to them. Some of my best friends were just because I was sitting next to them, and I ended up talking to them. It was that and a mix of shared like hobby, because like when
Interest.
I was younger, drawing was kind of like like the big thing for me. And I would like to draw I like drawing even in school, and if the person sitting next to me is like some of the best friends I've made. It's like they've seen me drawing, and then like they're kind of just like, "Oh, you like drawing?" And they kind of show me their drawing, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of just end up, like this. That's kind of like how our friendship started. So for you, h- like since we're kind of like on topic already, like how important for you is like when you have those kind of like shared hobbies, I guess.
Um, it I would say it varies from person to person, and especially age-wise too. Just because, when you're younger, I feel like the similarities are just the easiest kind of bridging um tool that you have. Like, oh, we both like the same things. Oh, we both like the same music. Oh, we both like this kind of toy, or we're both interested in space. We're both, like it's just an easy kind of way to bridge the gap, especially when you're younger and you haven't developed those kinds of skills yet to go and make friends. You're able to connect with something similar. Whereas when you're older, I feel that for me at least, I don't necessarily have to have friends that like the same things that I do,
Mhm.
and that tends to be the case. We vary with the things that we're interested in, but the older that I've gotten, what's become more important to me is values, similar things that are, I guess, non-negotiables, when it comes to respect, when it comes to the way that we treat our family, the way that different things like that.
Mhm.
Your values tend to take more of a focus, I feel, the older you get, because when you're in school, you're around these people all the time and it makes it easy to be friends with them. But when you're older, you kind of have to go out of your way like
Mhm.
to be friends with
And yeah.
people, making time outside of being in college, or making time outside of work. And you have to kind of ask yourself, like, if I'm going to, take this time, like take out my time to spend time with these people, and it's like it's a real effort to do so, what kind of people are they? Like, is it going to align with um again, similar values? Like, do we think the same things are um important? Not necessarily like every single thing, like checking the box, but if this person is very disrespectful, or they don't know how to treat other people, I don't think that I would see myself, wanting to spend time with them, that kind of thing.
Mhm. No, no, yeah, I completely get what you were saying. What you're saying about values, like it's hard to like when you're older. You kind of like your values are like more set. Not to say that your values aren't set when you're younger, but it's like it's more.
More
Allow me to use
defined,
the word. Yeah,
more defined, and
flexible.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, you kind of understand yourself a little bit. And it's also too, I see that Melvi, hi Melvi, she put there in the chat, there's also different ages. I
Mm.
didn't think that I would have friends that are like decades older than me, but I do. you know, it's when you're older that kind of stuff just happens. Whereas when you're younger and you're going to school, you're typically around your peers.
Mm.
So you're kind of in the same life, stages. Whereas when you're older, you can run into people who have kids, like people who are married, people who may have grandkids. Like, you might be friends with people who have grandkids. Like, I have coworkers who they're not super old, but they're old enough to have grandkids. And so, we're able to converse and engage. And I have like work food buddies, like we get lunch together, that kind of thing, So
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that there's a set like list of that we have to have this amount of similarities or this amount. I think just depending on what stage in life you're at, you might value things a little bit differently
Mhm.
with your
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like it's hard to hang out with like someone like let's say when you have those kind of like those like you because person like you said, it's not that it's a list of like values for you, but you personally what's sort of like a deal breaker for you, right? Like when you come across it, and it's kind of like hard to hang out with someone who's like kind of constantly in that zone of like kind of like where you're like this is kind of like a deal breaker for me. So I get that for you, especially like it's I would say it's more complicated if you're been friends with, the person for a while. But if you're just kind of like starting to meet them, then that's kind of like uh, where you decide, they want to make them, do I want them to be a friend? Do I want them to just be an acquaintance, just someone I hang out
But
with
you know
occasionally?
what? Sometimes though, EJ, because friends can enter your life for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So you might not even get to that deep level of core values. When I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about core values, that's for my core people, the people that I go to for legitimate problems, for things that, I would confide in them for things. But if we're talking about friends that we just have just for social things, like you could have a gym buddy that you might
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily get to the core of, like, oh, we're gonna you know connect on that level, right? You could have friends that are just dedicated for, yeah, we go to the gym together, we hang out, we have lunch, that's it, or
Mm-hmm.
you also have your friends that you do hobbies together, like you go painting, or you do a thing, like there are different friendships that we have that we intersect for different reasons, where you might not even need to reach that point of asking of the whole core values things, because you only meet together for that one thing, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a bad thing, because these are just your people for, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
can have a person that I'm really into, like we're fanning over some kind of TV show, or we're really into comics and we go to conventions together, stuff like that.
It makes me think of like if you frequently visit like a particular, let's say, like coffee shop, and like the employees kind of already know you. You get close to some of
That's
them.
my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing. I do that everywhere I go. I love going to the same places, and you get in kind of a routine with
Mm-hmm.
some things, but I like making a point. I feel like that's one of the fastest ways to make a friend, is just being interested in other people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
First is getting to know their name. And you might not be able to make the connection the first time around when you encounter them, but if you make the effort to remember it, like at the coffee shop, you remember that you kind of try to remember, oh, what was that barista's name? And you can even be like, I'm so sorry. I feel like I remember your name. Is it XYZ? And they're like, is it
Mm-hmm.
that? And then they can correct you if it's wrong. And if you remembered it right, then it's good. But either way, you can kind of make a connection there, because they can see that you're exerting effort, and they'll remember you for that. Because a lot of people don't make that kind of effort nowadays when it comes to, like, connections and stuff like that. People are just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
they're on the go, they're in and out, and they they're after like their own thing, because people are busy, people are constantly moving. Whereas if you can take the time to slow down, you could make a friend out of a barista, and then they'll like remember your drink. They're like, oh yeah, do you want the cinnamon dolce today? And they're like, yeah, I would love it, actually. Or you could like joke around them, actually, I'm going to change it up on you, I'm going to throw you off, stuff like that. Like, it's just that fun banter where
Makes
you
me
can,
imagine
like,
like you come into the shop and they already have it because they know
yeah,
what
like, I
time you
saw
come
you.
in. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah,
know
that
what time
happens
you come in,
sometimes.
and they're like,
Yeah,
here's your drink. You don't
yeah.
have to wait." But uh, that actually got me thinking. Like, so for you, it's like consistency is more important than chemistry, right? Because chemistry is kind of like, let's say, values. So for you, kind of consistency is more important.
I wouldn't even say chemistry is values. I feel like chemistry is a very unique thing. I I've only felt chemistry with a friend with a very select few of people. And what I mean by chemistry is that it's the ease of conversation once you start talking. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost as if there's no dead air. You're just constantly you're able, like, you get each other. Like, there's like an understanding that even without you don't even have to explain yourself. For some reason,
Mm-hmm.
it clicks. There's situations that happen like that, but that's not the most common thing. And for me, in my experience, I wouldn't use the word consistency. I want to go back to the word of interest. Showing interest in other people really can bridge um, connections, especially when you're trying to make a friend,
Mm-hmm.
because it gives people opportunity to share something about themselves, which a lot of the time people like to do. Like, if you go to a nursing home and you've ever, talked to the elderly there and asked them questions, they will share lots of things with you, right? And
Mhm.
even kids, on the opposite, the same way is true. Like when I spend time with my niece, and you ask her like, oh, how was school today? Like, what did you do in school? They have a lot to share. Everybody always has a lot to share, and when you give them that opportunity to share with you,
Mhm.
that's like the signal underneath is kind of like communicating to them, oh, this person cares about what I have to say.
Mhm.
This person is willing to listen to what I have to say, and it becomes a connection in that way. And then you can kind of bring stuff back after they've said something like, oh, I would love to try that coffee place that you're talking about. Or, oh, do you have any, if they've told you about, let's say they've told you about a vacation that they took, do you have any suggestions from, where you went? Because I would love to go there. I'm really into, sharing little bits of pieces of
Mhm.
yourself and then them and then like that back and forth. Again, it's not something that's going to happen like overnight, because the chemistry thing I think is a very unique situation with just past experiences and things that you go through together. But the more common thing I think is just show genuine interest in other people, and then you'll be surprised what that can open up in terms of creating connections or creating friendships.
You're, I'd say you're pretty good at like making friends. Like you have a lot of like different ways, and like not well, not necessarily like making friends with everyone, but like reaching sort of like that awkward phase, right, between like acquaintance and friend. You know?
But I didn't used to be that way,
Yeah,
funnily
that's what I want
enough.
to ask you. Like, do you
Yeah.
find it? Did you find it? Do you find it harder now, or like from what I'm hearing, it's like it was harder to make friends before.
I I think what it was for me a lot of the time is just being comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
like being comfortable with the friends that you already have, being comfortable with um where you're at versus when you're in a public space, and instead of thinking of like how you can keep to yourself, like self-preservation or just like making yourself
Mm-hmm.
small in that sense, being able to find to get yourself in the mindset of, I want to connect with this person. How can I do that in this moment? And and just taking that chance. And sometimes it's not gonna land. I'm gonna be honest. There are times where I've gotten rejected. There are times
Mm-hmm.
where you try to extend, but then it doesn't land. And you can't take it personally because you don't know what's going on the other side of that person on that day.
Mm-hmm.
But you can always try again if you end up encountering them again. um it's effort. It's effort that requires you to be pushed out of your comfort zone, and it can be challenging, and I get why a lot of people may struggle to make friends because it's scary. It can be scary, especially when
Yeah,
you're
definitely.
younger.
Mm-hmm.
When you're younger and you feel like you yourself are weird, and there are things that like it you get self-conscious. There are times where people really get self-conscious, but just being able to try and see where it takes you, the the act of trying it, I think over time, once you've done it enough, will give you the confidence to be like, hey, maybe, it might work with this other person, and just
Mm-hmm.
constantly, trying again.
I mean, it's like, like for you, it's like, do you think there's kind of like too early for like being yourself in like a friendship with someone? And like you
Um,
work yourself too early that you kind of you think.
I think there's a difference between being yourself and showing everything that you are. Or like the first time that I'm meeting you, EJ, I am not going to drop all of my trauma and and everything that I've been through in a
Mhm.
conversation the first time that we're meeting each other. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um what people mistake as authenticity, that word gets thrown around a lot, I feel like, on social media, like it being authentic.
Mhm.
is really like, don't force anything because and it's another word that I've seen a lot, to be performative. Like you shouldn't feel like you're performing for people that you want to be friends with. Like if you want to make a comment about how they look because you genuinely believe that they look nice, then say it. But if you're just saying things just for the sake of saying it, then don't say it. Or people who try to feign or pretend that they're into that thing that that person is talking about, like, oh yeah, I'm also really into comic books and I've read, and they start to come up with this a lot of different things that ends up actually not being true. That's where you
Mhm.
kind of fall into, you know more dangerous territory, because that will set you up for failure
Mhm.
later on.
If you can't like
Whereas,
really like back up what they're saying. Yeah.
yeah, whereas the thing that you're talking about, I think is more about, um if you're a silly person and you know that you're a silly person, then be silly. you know don't think that you have to make that stuff small just because the you think the other person is not going to receive it well. Obviously,
Mhm.
don't be mean to people, or don't like common courtesies still apply, yeah, but
Mhm.
to kind of, I guess, filter yourself in that way where it's like you're pretending to be something that you know that you're not. Like, don't do that for the sake of building friendships, especially when it comes to um like compromising your morals, like things that that you value, that are important to you because
Mhm.
you think that that will help you fit in with a certain group of people. That can be challenging. I know that's a challenging thing, growing up, especially with like the school scene, and you see a lot of people having like all these friends and they do all these different things, like, but then ask yourself, like, do I really want to be friends with those kinds of people who do that kind of stuff? And it's like, I don't know.
Actually, on that note, like I think this is kind of like something a lot of people like struggle, especially when you're growing up, when you're kind of like going from like, let's say, like you're kind of like from your teenage years to your like adult years. It's like I know the tendency is like when you have these friends that you've had since like high school, it's like to keep them around no matter what, because you've known it for years, you've known it for so long. But is it like, is it ever kind of like okay to kind of say that you've outgrown like those friendships?
I think a lot of the times it happens without you even realizing it, because there's plenty of friends that when you move through stages of life, like when I graduated high school, there's a lot of people that I stopped talking to, not necessarily because of bad blood or because I I didn't like them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but it just happened to be that what kind of helped bring us close together was no longer there
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Like going back to proximity, being around them in a classroom or being around them at school, that helped a lot to kind of um, keep the friendship. But when that was no longer there, and it maybe required more effort for me to make time to meet up with them because they're in a different city, or whatever it may be, I would have. There are plenty of people that I used to be very close to before that I would have no problem reconnecting with now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily that the friendship went away, but they're not at the forefront of your life anymore.
Yeah.
And it's okay that other people are at the forefront, because maybe the people that are at the forefront now and not at the back burner are the people that need to help elevate you to a different level of growth, and being able to um, learn from them. And maybe they're what you need in the sense that your goals are kind of related, and you can kind of help each other through that. It could be a lot of different things. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not that, I don't want to say that it's always, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some friendships that do end because of other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It could be because of something happened, or misunderstandings. But even then, if you allow the door to still be open. You would be surprised what time can do. And giving people second chances and realizing that people can change, and then also realizing your role in how things also unfolded. But friendships, how do friendships happen? I will say that it is effort. And in as much as we put effort in other aspects of our life, especially, everybody's always big on romantic relationships, and I get it. Everyone always wants to find the one. But when it comes to friendships, these are people that will carry you through some of the most challenging moments of your life, without wanting anything else from you that some other relationships might expect. So it's important to put in effort in whatever level that they're at, and they could be in your life for different reasons, but it's in order to keep them, in order for it to continually happen, is to put in the effort and be interested in people. And it's not always going to be a straight line of things being perfect, but wanting to still connect and to try again. There's people that I've reconnected with, even after years of not talking, and it's always going to be, it's a two-way street. Don't get me wrong. Like both of you kind of have to want mutually to continue to participate in the friendship, but sometimes somebody always needs to initiate, and there's nothing wrong if you are the person to be the first to initiate. I don't know why that's always like a stigma, where like being the first person, like, oh, I don't want to do it first. Like, just try. Like, I know it's scary to be rejected. I know it's scary to feel that disappointment. Like, you would be surprised. You would be surprised how many people are just waiting for that opportunity to reconnect, and it can turn into something that is beyond what you hoped for. So, yeah.
You've shared a lot of like really, I would say, really good points. Where, like, while you're talking, I'm also kind of like thinking back on like my
Processing.
friendships. Yeah, I'm processing, like I'm thinking back on like my friendships. My current friendships, my like past friendships, and like I should really like reach out to like this person, kind of, maybe after this broadcast, which like I want to thank, of course, I want to thank you, Tony, and of course everyone there in our live chat as well, for joining us, for sharing, for greeting us, sharing your comments there. I think I saw one from Malby. I just didn't get to read it. We just didn't get to read it on the show today, sadly, but I'll look back to it later. I'll see what she said in our live chat. Hope you all enjoyed today's broadcast. This is our first broadcast for the year, by the way. So let's start this year off making friends, and we hope to see you again next time here on INCRadio chat line. Have a great weekend, everyone. Goodbye. Bye.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I bring my last.
Kuya, okay na?
Opo.
Wait na lang! O, set na po kami dito sa distrito ng Quezon. Ready na ba kayo, mga ka-Beast Friend?
Business Beat Season 5, bukas na!